Welcome to another edition of Coding with Chapa. I'm Chapa, got coffee, let's code. Today we're going to talk about how to create your own modules in Python, and those modules will contain user-defined functions, and then how to access them. So I created a folder, I just called it temp. Normally you would call this whatever your project's going to be. And I have two text files. So one of these is going to be the main file, and the other is going to be the module file that we're going to import. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to rename these and create my my Python files. So I'm just going to go to the rename, and the first one I'm going to build is going to be the formulas one. So I'm going to call it triangle formulas. Yeah, that's what I want. Yeah, triangle formulas, and we're going to change that ending to py, and that'll make it a Python file. Yes, I want to do that. Okay, and then the next one, we're going to go ahead and make it right now too. We'll rename it to, we're going to call this one module example, make it module import. So module import example. Just module import's fine. And of course it also needs to be a py file. And yes. So we have these two files. They need to be in the same directory. Right now they're in the temp directory. So module import and triangle formulas. This one right here, triangle formulas, is going to be the one that we import. So I'm going to go ahead and what we need to do with that one is we actually need to write our code now. So let's open it up. And we have our code here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some comments up here, and then I'm going to create the shell for my two functions. So I created the comments here. Up here I'm going to say what this is. I probably should put my name up there, so it's me. And then triangle formulas, and we're going to be testing for equilateral triangles and for right triangles. And then this is going to be these will be my two functions. One will be the equilateral formula, and the other will be the right formula. And you don't need to comment here as long as these formula names are intuitive. So, for example, right formula, you understand with triangles, this is pretty intuitive. You don't need to actually comment saying this is going to test for right triangle. We don't need to do that. Not if we code correctly. Okay, so the next thing that I need to do is I need to write some code that's going to test for the sides of the equilateral triangle. So equilateral triangle means all the sides are equal. I'm going to write the code now. Okay, so I wrote the code. What I did is I created an if-else statement. And in the if statement, what I said is, if side 1 is the same as side 2, and the conditional operator here, side 2 is the same as side 3, then we have an equilateral triangle. All the sides are equal. If that's the case, return true. Else, if that's not the case, return false. So, very simple. Taking in three sides, comparing them, returning true or false. So the next thing you do is start writing code for the right formula. That one's a little bit more complex, so it'll take a moment. What I did here is I'm taking in the three sides, and then I'm going to take the sides, I'm going to multiply them by 100, and then I'm going to cast them to an int. This is going to have the effect of preserving the two decimal places to the right, and then it's going to cast them to an integer. And that way I can keep my floats and then cast them to an integer and then use these more effectively. And this is the best way to handle this problem. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is, now that I have my sides ready to be compared, I am going to put a comment here because I do want people to know at a glance what's going to happen inside of the next block of code. And the next block of code is going to be an if-else statement. What I'll be doing is testing the sides against each other to find the longest side. So I threw in this block right here, and what it does is it compares side 1 to see if it's greater than side 2, and side 1 must also be greater than side 3. So this has the impact of of determining if side 1 is the greatest side. If it is the longest side, then we're going to assign side 1 to C. The other two don't matter, because we'll be using the Pythagoras theorem, and what that theorem says is C squared equals A squared plus B squared. So with that in mind, the only side we really need to determine is which is the longest, and that's why we're only worried about C. After that, we'll just name these in order. So A is going to be side 2 and B is going to be side 3. Okay, so the next thing we'll need to do is we're going to have to write an elif statement, and that's going to test for to check side 2 and see if side 2 is the greatest side. So here we did the same thing. We said, okay, if side 2 greater than side 1? If that's the case, and side 2 is greater than side 3, then side 2 is assigned to C. Again, because we only care about C. Then after that, A is going to equal side 1, B is going to equal side 3. And it doesn't matter if these two are backwards. The only one that matters is side C for the longest side. So, having done that, the next step, we don't actually need to test side 3, because if it's not side 1 and it's not side 2, and there's only 3 sides, it logically has to be side 3. And you can see that that's the case. I assigned C to side 3, then A is 1, B is 2, and now we successfully test for side 1, side 2, and then deduce it's side 3 if those two are not the case. Alright, so the next thing that I need to do, and I'm going to put a comment on this again because I want people to know what's happening with this block of code. I don't think it's intuitive. So I'm going to say this is the right triangle test. And here I'm going to go ahead and say C is equal to, and this is going to be raised to the second power. Okay, so now what we did is we said, now that we've determined what those sides are, we can raise them to the second power so that it'll fit nicely in our formula. And now it's just a matter of doing the formula. And so this part here is going to be really simple. Gosh, that's a little bit more challenging. Okay, so if C is the same as A plus B, and we have Pythagoras theorem here, then this returns true, else it returns false. And that's it. We have our equilateral formula, we have the right formula, and that's it. As I look at this code, one thing I notice is that we have this extra return, so we need to remember to get rid of that. And now we have our nicely formed, let's go ahead and save it, formula module. And we have two user-defined functions in our module, and this is it. We take in 3 arguments. We run a little test, return true or false. Here we take in 3 arguments, so we run our tests and return true or false. You'll notice that because these are named in an intuitive manner, we don't have to have a comment. Here I did put one because I wanted this part here to be very quickly, for people to understand very quickly what was going on in this if-else statement. And then also the same here, very quickly to know, okay, what's going on here? Well, we're testing for the right triangle right here. And that's it. I think it's pretty neat, pretty clean. So let's go ahead with all that saved, and we'll just minimize it. And now we're ready to work with the main module, the import module. So let's open that up. And okay, I'm going to write some code and then I'll be back to explain. Alright, so I wrote a comment to say what this thing does. This is how to import a module and use its functions. We're going to be using the right triangle examples. I have some numbers here. These are all numbers for a right triangle so that we can test it. And right here, this is a very important line right here. We're going to import the triangle's formula, which was the name of the script that we just wrote, and we're going to import it as TF, and then we're going to be using the functions that we have available to us within that module. So the first thing that I need to do is I'm going to need to write a little bit of code to hard code our sides, and that's how we're going to do it. We're going to hard code our sides so that we can test it. Okay, so I'm hard coding the sides. So here's side 1, side 2, side 3, and we're just saying these are going to be the side links. So 1, 2, and 2. Now here's where I use my module. I'm going to say if, and you notice TF, and that's right here. That's what we imported. And then this part right here is we're accessing the formula that we wrote in the previous script. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. Yeah, the triangle's formula. And you can see it's the equilateral formula. And so that is that's right here. That's this function right here. And we're going to pass it the 3 arguments that it requires. And if it returns true, which means it is an equilateral triangle, then we're going to set this to true. If it returns true, then we're going to print this is an equilateral triangle. So now I've added an elif statement here. And this is accessing the next formula that we wrote. Let's see if I can pull it up again. There it is. So the function right formula, that's the one we're going to be accessing. You see that it takes 3 arguments. And so we're going to be accessing it right here, tf.right formula, pass it the 3 arguments. If it returns true, then it is a right triangle. Very simple. Okay, so the only thing we're missing is what if neither one of those is the case? Okay, so if neither of these first 2 are the case, it's neither an equilateral triangle nor a right triangle, then we're simply going to put print other type of triangle and then return. So that's it. We've imported the module triangle formulas as TF. We've accessed 2 different functions from that module, and we're returning some type of we're passing arguments and then returning some type of print, and then return, and that's it. Now with the main module, we need to have this. We should always have this in the main module to say this is the entry point. And this is actually if we have several functions going on, which most of the time you will. But in this case, it's just a good habit to have this part here, and it's going to access right here. Now you'll notice that in the formula, in the triangle formulas module, we don't need that. You don't see it anywhere in the code because this one isn't actually meant to be run from this script. This script is meant to be accessed, imported, and then used, not to be run from. So that's it. Please take note of the formatting and the scope. I'm going to go ahead and run this and test it. So with these numbers right here as sides, it comes as other type of triangle, which is correct. Now let's run it with all of them the same. This should be an equilateral triangle. So let's run that. And it comes back correct. Didn't catch this. Here it is. This is an equilateral triangle. Okay, so the next one that we need to run is we need to change these sides to one of those examples of a right triangle listed up above. So I'm just going to do the 3, 5, and the 4 one. Alright, and it comes back as a right triangle. Done. Okay, so I hope that was interesting, and hope you learned something from that. Again, please take note of the formatting and the commenting.